Takeru is a knockout fighter where Rodtang is not. Well, that didn't age very well. I gotta say, Rodtang did surprise me. I mean, man, what a shot, what a knockout. I also said like getting hit in the face isn't a great strategy, but in this fight, he got hit in the face pretty hard before knocking out Takeru. What a specimen. Also, the comment sections were quite funny. I mean, yeah, it is what it is, you know. This is kickboxing. I love it. By the way, if we look at his record, I still stand by the case that we still see not that many knockouts. So I wasn't entirely wrong about him not necessarily being a knockout fighter, but he did show us that he got the power, and I really hope we'll see more knockouts coming from Rodtang because that was just awesome. With everything said, I mean, I love surprises. You know, it's not the first time I've been wrong in doing a prediction, but I love surprises. I love when there are upsets. For example, when Miguel Trindade knocked out Chad Collins, the world was on fire, man. It was crazy. Those things make me so happy as a kickboxing fan because anything can happen. Just to talk shortly about 172, it was an awesome event. To be honest, as mentioned, I do not watch MMA, so I basically only watch the kickboxing portion of the card, and man, these fights delivered. I mean, if we look at the fight between Jonathan DiBella and Sam A, wow, that was just a kickboxing clinic by John DiBella. What a fight, what a fighter, and man, I can't wait to see more from this guy. I saw that Chatri, you know, the CEO of One Championship, was still downplaying his performance. I was like, yes, of course, a knockout is always awesome, but his performance was so good that I'm like, we should celebrate this performance. It was really, really amazing. So, and if we look at the other kickboxing fights on the card, there are so many great victories. Of course, we already talked about Takeru and Rodtang, but the fight I really want to talk about is the fight between Masaaki Noiri and Tawanchai, because a lot of people thought, you know, Tawanchai, he's the young blood, he's the guy who's going to take over kickboxing in 70 kg, but there stood Masaaki Noiri, a veteran of the sport, has been kickboxing since, you know, high school. In K1, he has fought in Glory. He has fought in one of the biggest events in the world called The Match in 2022. He is a former K1 champion. He is one of the best of the world, and he knocked out Tawanchai in 172 in Japan in the Saitama Super Arena. What a performance! And now he is the one interim featherweight champion. Man, it was amazing to see him become a champion because, as mentioned, I've been following this guy for a long time and he is just been one of the best for such a long time. He wasn't as globally recognized as he, in my opinion, should have been, but this is, I think, the first big step he's making to become one of the more well-known fighters on the planet. And yeah, well, he's now the interim champion, which means he's going to be able to fight for the real belt. This is still a real belt in my opinion because, again, one of the best. But he's going to fight against the champion Superbon, and that is going to be a very interesting fight. Another fighter from Thailand, another Thai specialist. It's a fighter who has fought in kickboxing many times before then, well, compared to Tawanchai, so it's going to be very interesting how this fight will go. To be honest, with the performance Masaaki Noiri had in this fight, you know, by chopping the legs with calf kicks, coming close, making those sweet body punches, combinations to the head, you know, man, this is going to be an awesome fight. I can't wait between Superbon and Masaaki Noiri to happen. Well, I mentioned that I might be previewing Glory 99, the Glory last heavyweight standing qualification tournament, the 32-man tournament. And here we are. I just needed to talk about this because this is the first event of probably many. At least this is a new kind of experiment for Glory, and I feel like this is something they want to pull through because it's evident that they also doing this in featherweight, which means, you know, they see some real future in this. So before I'm going to do, you know, like my analysis and predictions, I want to talk a little bit about this tournament itself because, you know, like last year, Glory came back with the Grand Prix tournaments, which are, you know, a staple in Kickboxing, a one-night, 8-man heavyweight tournament. Well, at least, it started with heavyweight, and eventually there were, multiple tournaments, multiple Grand Prix in different weight classes. But the return marked as something special, something that's been so popular in the 90s and in the early zeros, of course, in Japan, in K1. When Glory took over as the #1 organization, they did start with tournaments, but they stopped doing them, and they chose for divisional champions, and champions could defend the belt against challengers. Well, that was pretty cool, but at the same time, we just missed the tournament because one night, 3 fights, 8 fighters, that's just bound for spectacle. It's like a story. I mentioned this in a earlier video, in my video about the future of kickboxing when Rico and Badr are retired. Like I told about, storytelling, like the first round, the quarterfinal is a little bit like the setup, the opening, the introduction of a movie. And then you go to the semifinal. That's a little bit like, the middle part of a movie. And when you go to the final, well, you go to the final of the movie, like, the conclusion of the movie, so to speak. That's why I really enjoy these tournaments. And, well, I really hope they would continue the Grand Prix. They didn't. What they've done is they started a new concept called the last, man standing. In this case, heavyweight. So what is this tournament? It's a tournament with 32 fighters, 32 heavyweights who are competing in different phases. In phase 1, in the first event at Glory 99, there will be 32 fighters, there will be 16 fights. So these 16 winners will form 4 4-man tournaments, and the winners of these 4 4-man tournaments will advance to the last heavyweight standing final in December. So that will be 4 fighters. In phase 2, something similar is happening, except that there will be 24 fighters in that tournament. The date of the tournament for phase 2, I don't think it's already announced, at least not the exact date. I think the event will take place in August. Anyway, 24 fighters, but the losers of the 32-man qualification event, they will have another chance, at least a select few will have another chance to, qualify for the tournament at phase 2. At the same time, Glory will introduce new fighters in phase 2 in that 24-man phase, whatever you want to call it. They will add them as well. And if I'm correct, they will do a similar thing like at that event, the winners will advance to another set of 4-man tournaments. And I think there will be 3 4-man tournaments, and the winners from those tournaments, those 3 fighters will also qualify for the final 8 basically in December. So that means that there's only 1 spot left. That spot is a wild card. Of course, a lot of people are hoping that it's probably going to be Rico Verhoeven. Except Rico Verhoeven has mentioned last year that he probably isn't going to do a Grand Prix or an 8-man tournament anytime soon because it was so heavy on his body, and and he's been on top of the division for such a long time that, to be honest, in my honest opinion, I really would like Rico Verhoeven to participate in this tournament. At the same time, he's been winning for such a long time that I feel like, let him do what he wants to do. After months of fan demand, he actually participated in the Grand Prix last year in the 8-man one-night tournament. He won the tournament. Of course, for entertainment purposes, I want him to enter. But at the same time, he's won it all. And of course, there are some rumors that he might be fighting Ngannou in December, which would be something it's probably not going to be kickboxing, but he earned his stripes, in my opinion, to be able to choose for the crossover battles, for the big battles. If he can earn a lot of money with that, also because he is Glory's champion, he will bring a lot of eyeballs in Glory as well, just being the champion, as the representative fighting a guy like Ngannou. Of course, this is all speculation. We all don't know if this is going to be happening, but if it doesn't happen, I really would love him to enter this tournament. So when I was recording the preview show for Glory 99, I wasn't aware that Glory announced those 2 huge headliners for Glory 100, their anniversary event. We got some big news, of course. As a lot of people already know, Rico Verhoeven will face off against former light heavyweight champion Artem Vakhitov on day 2 of the Glory 100 show. That's an insane fight because, for a lot of people who don't know Artem Vakhitov, I know there are a lot of people like, what is this challenge? Why should Rico facing someone who hasn't fought in kickboxing for such a long time, someone who is a light heavyweight? Well, I can tell you guys, I get it. I get where you guys are coming from. But Artem Vakhitov is one of the most technical kickboxers you'll ever see. He's a guy who knows to slip under punches, go over them, you know, counter and continue on the offense, knows how to play the boxing game very well. He's a prolific boxer, and, you know, he actually has been in Glory for almost, well, let me put it like this. He started at Glory 9. So he was there at the start, and he defeated everybody in the light heavyweight division until Russian fighters were banned from Glory. At that time, a whole new light heavyweight division emerged. In that sense, I get it. We might want to see Artem Vakhitov back in light heavyweight, but at the same time, because he was on top of his game for such a long time, and he actually expressed his, you know, desire to face off against, you know, Rico Verhoeven, I think this is still a very, you know, interesting fight, a very unique challenge for both Rico and Vakhitov. You know, I get it. Rico is a much bigger guy, but you know, it's not always about being the biggest guy. If we learned anything from kickboxing, it is that size in kickboxing doesn't matter. Andy Hook won the tournament, you know, the K1 World Grand Prix in '96, and he was, you know, actually maybe even a middleweight, going up in heavyweight and knocking people out there as well. So I am really excited about this fight. I know a lot of people want to see Jamal Ben Saddik versus Rico Verhoeven. I get that, but at the same time, he is entering in this tournament. He wants to win the tournament. It would be the 4th time they will be fighting, so with Vakhitov being such a prolific champion and being a new challenge for Rico Verhoeven, I think this is a very fitting challenger. Eventually, I want to see Vakhitov back in light heavyweight because that division is just so insane. And talking about that division, of course, as mentioned, I said Glory 100 Day 2, which means I'm going to talk about Day 1 because Glory 100 will be a two-parter with Day 2, of course, headlined by Rico Verhoeven and Vakhitov, and Day 1 will be headlined by Tarik Khbabez taking on Sergej Maslobojev. This will be a rematch, and I can't wait because at the time, the original fight, it was, I think, the fight of the year that year. And, you know, it was an all-out war. It was, you know, punches over and over, low kicks. It was non-stop action. One of the, you know, better fights in Glory in its history. Well, now they are going to, you know, do a rematch again for the title, and I can't wait, man. This is going to be all fireworks. So Glory 100, a two-parter. Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be taking place on 13th of June, the 14th of June in Ahoy, Rotterdam. I am incredibly hyped. Glory is really doing great things because, man, they had been doing announcement after announcement, and this one is going to be, you know, this is a big one. Also, Glory announced their return to the US. I will be talking about that at the end of the show. First, we're going to talk about Glory 99, the Glory Last Heavyweight Standing. Enjoy. Also, what I want to mention is, like, I think it was Giovanni Chin when he asked Marshall Zlasnik, the CEO of Glory, like, is Rico Verhoeven participating? Well, he was like, you know, this tournament is all built around Rico Verhoeven not participating. And I get it. I mean, you know, you want to build some new stars. You want to build new heavyweight stars. That's why they have found 32 heavyweight fighters. So, you know, to create some new stars basically, because the division is quite shallow at the moment, and this could change it all. For the time being, I'm actually quite, I don't mind this at all. I feel like we need some new heavyweight stars, and I think this is a great way to build them. And why I say that is because, of course, there are some familiar names in this tournament. For example, like Jamal Ben Saddik, Bahram Rajabzadeh, Tariq Saro, but there are also a lot of new talents, like exciting talents. I mean, for example, Rade Opacic, Ahmed Krnjić, Irash Azizpour. This is a pretty great tournament. I know a lot of people say like, well, who are these names? There are nobodies. Well, there are a lot of fighters that I'm quite skeptical about, but there are a lot of great fighters in this tournament. So, you know what? Let's just start with the analysis and prediction. The first phase of the Glory Last Heavyweight Standing will take place on the 5th of April. It's on a Saturday in the Netherlands in Ahoy, Rotterdam. Although it's got a fancy title, it's still officially Glory 99, a numbered event. And this will be the first Glory event that, well, at least in the Netherlands, won't be broadcasted on Videoland. It will be broadcast on DAZN, which is new for a lot of Dutch fans. So I'm very curious about what the numbers will be. We probably will never be hearing those numbers, but you know, we'll see what happens. Yeah, the draws have been done. It was a random draw, a big critical point of the Grand Prix last year, that the draw was a little bit, you know, kind of weird. I don't want to explain myself again, but the thing is, this was a random draw, which is awesome. Glory has released the fight card, so, you know, like always, we start at the bottom. We work ourselves up to the main event. In the first qualifying matchup for the Glory Last Heavyweight Standing Tournament, we have two debutants. In the first one, we have Petr Romankevich. He is a fighter from Belarus. He is riding a 3 losing streak, which isn't that great, but if you can say one thing about him, he has a win over Donigi Abena. I gotta say, it's 9 years ago, but it's still a win over Donigi Abena. Abena did avenge his loss, but if you look at his style is very kick heavy. At the same time, he gets tired a little bit too fast in my opinion. Well, he is taking on Luigi Gashi, of course, a familiar face because he's the twin brother of Azran Gashi, who is already signed with Glory and is also participating in this tournament. And they have got similar styles, but I think that, Azran has a little bit more success. But, I'm very curious about, what he can do in the ring against Romankevich. To be honest, if we look at his twin brother, if we look at the both records, then I would say that Gashi should win this by, quite easy. Next up, in our next fight, we have the British fighter Nathan Cook taking on Anis Bouzid from Morocco. Nathan Cook is making his debut in Glory while Anis Bouzid has already fought in Glory. He fought against Mori Krama, came on the losing end, but at the same time, he did show promise. He's a prolific boxer and he knows how to play the kicking game as well. If we look at Nathan Cook, his history is mostly Muay Thai, and so you will see a kick-heavy game which, it's not only kicking, he also uses a lot of knees, he uses flying knees, and he also has a lot of knockouts starting with those flying knees. So he is a powerhouse. Most wins come by knockout. But if we look at the experience of Bouzid, there is a big gap because Bouzid has 45 wins on his record while Cook only has 7. So that's a big gap. And that's why I think Bouzid, even if you look at his fighting style, his crispiness, I think he should take this fight. Now, well, I don't want to say by ease, but he will probably take this fight. On to the next one. In the next fight, we have Miroslav Vujovic taking on Colin George. Of course, Colin George, he has fought before in Glory, he fought against Azran Gashi. He did lose the fight, but he did show that he got a lot of power. So he is a powerhouse. I think he's 2 meters tall, so he is a big guy taking on the debutant Vujovic. Vujovic, he's a guy, he comes from Montenegro. He actually participated in the K1 World Grand Prix qualification in Sarajevo. When Vujovic entered the K1 tournament, he actually won his first fight as a quarterfinal, so he has got some tournament experience, but not necessarily because he eventually got injured and had to be replaced by Milos Svetikanin, who eventually won the tournament, who is also participating in this tournament. But, he is 11-7, he is he's already 34, but who I think will win this fight if we look at the experience, I would say that, Colin George is going to take this fight. On to the next fight. The next fight, the other Gashi brother, Azran Gashi taking on Nidal Bakiri. This is a fight, that I think is well matched up. Of course, this is random, but still, I think this is a well-rounded fight. And if we look at, Azran Gashi, as mentioned before, like his brother, I think he's a powerhouse. He knows how to play the knockout game very well. He's actually quite rounded in his skill set, but he is mostly, looking for the knockout punches. He has knocked out a lot of people before. In his Glory debut, he actually knocked out his opponent. So it does sound like I am already nudging to him, which is kind of true because if we look at Nidal Bakiri, he's got, 3 losses in a row. He fought in K1 in the same tournament as Vujovic fought. He eventually got into the final, but he got, 2 losses in a row because he lost in the semi-final. And eventually, when his opponent who won couldn't fight in the final, he was brought in to fight against Milos Svetikanin. He lost again, and in the fight after that, he lost as well. So, which makes up for 3 losses in a row. This guy is known for, mostly throwing single shots. At the same time, if you can land one of the shots, of course, that can be a good night for the opponent. But I feel like, Azran Gashi is still, quite young, has explosiveness in himself. He's building up to be a respectable heavyweight, and I feel like he could pull it off. I think Azran Gashi is going to win this fight. Let's go to the next one. The next one, we have Yuri Farkas taking on Iraj Azizpour. This is Romania versus Iran. And this is a very interesting fight because Azizpour, as mentioned, he's one of those fighters who, could surprise the Glory division. He has been fighting in one championship for a while now. He defeated quite some familiar names. He actually defeated the current one championship champion, Roman Kriklia. a fighter that a lot of people want to see Rico Verhoeven fight against. Of course, never gonna happen. He signed with one championship, probably never going to leave it. Well, something we really hope, but anyway, that's not the fight we're talking about. We're talking about Irash Asispour fighting against Farkas, and I think Irash Asispour is, if you look at his style, he is a powerhouse. He is not necessarily a knockout fighter, but he is a pressure fighter who can knock people out. So this is a guy that I think will win this fight, because if we look at his opponent in Farkas, he is a Romanian fighter with a few losses. Although he is very agile, he still, hasn't been able to, defeat a bigger name. And I feel like Asispour has, earned his stripes. But I think Asispour is just a little bit too much for him right now. Next fight. This is a rematch. This is a fight between Ionut Iancu, the Romanian tank, and of course, the Turkish fighter, Cihat Kapanek. The first fight was awesome. Both guys are known for their knockout power. They were going at it. Kapanek, he wasn't very smart playing, the game while Iancu came at him with bombs, because Iancu just was like taking the shots to, give one. And although that makes up for a fun fight, that's just not the best strategy. Of course, I said it before, and then Takeru got knocked out by Rodtang. I know. But the thing is, they fought before and he felt the power. So I really hope Kapanek is holding his hands up high and not just engages in a brawl, because Iancu, you will knock your head off. This is immediately, a fight that you have to be sitting on the edge of your seat, because it's all over before you know it. This is going to end in a knockout. And to be honest, I feel like this is still Iancu's game. I think Iancu will still defeat Kapanek. I think he will knock him out again. But at the same time, I don't want to, I don't want to act like he doesn't got a chance, because Kapanek is very technical for a heavyweight kickboxer. The problem is he should use his technical capabilities a little bit more, because with only knockouts, you won't be able to make it in glory. I mean, when you face the top of the top, you gotta use a little bit more tacticalness. You gotta use your strategy. And I feel like with Ionut, you should use a little bit more, the distance. Eventually go for the knockout if you feel there's an opportunity, but don't go engage in a brawl with a brawler. All right, let's go to the next fight. In the next fight, we have two new fighters, and both fighters are very spectacular. Both are, probably the future of the heavyweight division. In the first fighter, we have a Romanian fighter called Alin Nekita. He is a very young fighter. He's only 21 years old, and his record is 16-1, which is pretty impressive. And he is, although he's a little bit short for the division, he's like 182. He is a very explosive boxer, knows how to combine his boxing skills very well. Is very entertaining in the ring. I think a lot of people will be surprised about what he can do. He is taking on one of the biggest prospects in kickboxing right now. He's taking on Ahmed Krnjić. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name correctly, but the thing is, he is one of the, best prospects in heavyweight kickboxing. He is a fighter from Bosnia, and I'm quite hyped about his, debut, because, he's got a 9-fight winning streak, which is very impressive. He defeated Uku Uriandal. He defeated Brian Dawes, who is also participating in this tournament, by head kick knockout. He's super aggressive, and he knows how to use the step-up knee very well. And next to that, he also loves to go to the body, going hard with body shots. So this is going to be a very difficult fight, to predict. And yeah, although I gotta say, I really hope that if one of these guys loses, that they will be brought back in the phase 2 of, this tournament, because both are, just the future of heavyweight kickboxing. But if we have to do a prediction, I would say that Ahmed Krnjić is going to win this fight. On to the next one. This is a funny one, because this is a fight where a lot of people call this guy a meme fighter. Sina Karimian is making his glory debut, and he's facing off against Thomas Musny. And, let's start off with, Sina Karimian. He's, of course, a former K1 fighter. He has fought a lot in K1. He lives in Japan, trains under Nicholas Pettis, K1 legend. But the thing is, it's not, Karimian is quite infamous, because he is not necessarily a very good fighter, as in, of course he can fight. There's no doubt about it. He can fight. But the thing is, he is just not, he's a dirty fighter. You know, when he hits someone in the crotch, someone turns away, he still will kick you in the head if the referee is not coming in between. And even when the referee is coming in between Cena and his opponent, he still sometimes will continue on fighting. He actually has, in multiple occasions, hit the referee in the face. So I already tagged, you know, Glory referee Edward Striker, like, you know, good luck. Yeah, he's got a couple of no contests because of his, you know, little bit of dirty kind of fighting, because he just throws hits after the bell. Even in this last fight, it was a, you know, a special rules bout where he was basically boxing with spinning back fist against Rukiya Ampo, who is a very popular Japanese fighter at 70 kg. Now, this is heavyweight, so they fought in a, you know, big weight difference. And of course, in this fight, there was a lot of chaos because both fighters were fighting after the referee was trying to break them up. I think about 6 security guards had to go into the ring, you know, separate both these fighters. Eventually, Ampo won the fight. But, you know, Krnjić is someone who, you know, when he fights, people will still watch because there is always happening something. And I expect something to happen as well. But if there is something he's really good at, like, just fighting wise, then I would say his spinning back fist is, okay, there's this one example where he's spinning around and almost falls on the ground, but no, his spinning back fist is pretty dangerous. So if you get hit by that, you will probably get knocked down. So, you know, Maslobojev should be looking out for that. But at the same time, he gets hit a little bit too easy, and he is facing against Tomasz Maslobojev. He is a Glory veteran. He is from Slovakia. Normally, I would immediately say, you know, Tomasz Maslobojev, he would win this fight. I mean, he has fought so many times against top competition, but he has only 3 fights in 6 years, which makes it a little bit difficult to say how good he is right now. He's known for kicks, so I expect Cena Krnjić, you know, to spinning back fist when there is a kick coming at him. So this fight can go both ways, but I don't know why, but I feel like I've got this hunch that Krnjić is going to win this fight, but that's only based on Maslobojev being so inactive while Krnjić has fought a lot in the last couple of years. Next fight. In the next fight, we have a interesting fight, a fight between Wamba and Mori Kroma. Of course, Mori Kroma is one of the most popular fighters at this moment. He is a fighter who, you know, who has got style, who's got flair. His fighting style is super interesting, super entertaining, explosive. Yeah, what can I say? He's a guy, you know, he likes to jump kick, jump knee. He has these long arms to put your opponent on a distance. But the thing is, he comes off from light heavyweight. He's coming up in heavyweight because Wamba was officially supposed to fight Uku Jurjendal. But of course, Uku Jurjendal, you know, broke his arm in the fight between him and Jamal Ben Saddik. So Kroma stepped in, and I think this makes the tournament even more interesting because Kroma is just such a talent. He's a huge talent. If we look at Wamba, he's a Frenchman. He is a little bit on the older side. And if I look at his fighting style, you know, while he's got, you know, skill, at the same time, he's quite wild. And I don't think Kroma is going to give him chance to recover when he swings and misses. I think he will get caught by either be a kick or a flying knee by Mori Kroma. So that's what I think. So Mori Kroma moves on to the next round, on to the next fight. In the next fight, we have a fight between the Russian Asadullah Nasipov and the Turkish fighter Murat Aygun. The first thing that is interesting is that Nasipov is from Russia, which means that Glory has opened the door for Russian fighters. This was quite surprising, and of course, a few months after this announcement, Glory announced that Glory heavyweight champion Rico Verhoeven will be defending his belt, of course, against another Russian fighter in former Glory light heavyweight champion Artem Vakhitov. Let's talk about Nasipov first. He is only 23 years young. His record is 10-1. He is a southpaw fighter, which is quite rare for heavyweight, which is interesting. So he is very good with his inside low kick because it's difficult to block that kick if you are standing with opposite legs in front of each other. Also, he's got a good jab, so he is a very interesting fighter to look forward to. He's taking on Murat Aygun, who is a veteran in kickboxing, you know, is a real powerhouse, as in he gives a lot of pressure. You know, he came into Glory with a great knockout. Then he lost 2 in a row, but he's still a big talent. Likes to throw big bombs. You know, in his Glory debut, he knocked his opponent out. Then he lost 2 fights by knockout. So it's going to be interesting what kind of Murat Aygun we're going to see here. But if we look at this particular matchup, I think Nasipov, with his, you know, his great jab, his stance, his youthfulness, I think he will be taking home the win of this fight. Next fight. On to the next fight. Number 11. Soufiane Laidouni, the Frenchman, is taking on the fighter from Ukraine, Primachev. Of course, Laiduni is already a well-known name in Glory, has fought lots of times in Glory before, and Primachev comes off from a fresh win against Abdurrahman Barkush. But let's take a look at both fighters. Of course, Laiduni is known for his more tactical kind of fighting style, not necessarily a knockout fighter. He's got some power in his hands. He wobbled Ionut Iancu, so he could do that, but he never plays that game. I personally would hope for him to use his power a little bit more because he does have power, and it's such a shame if you don't use the power if there is, you know, a possibility for a knockdown or maybe a knockout. So if we look at Primachev, as mentioned, he made his Glory debut last year. And surprisingly, another fighter who is a southpaw. He's got a strong jab as well, but he is not the fastest fighter. So if we look at both fighters, I know I would pick the more experienced fighter, and that of course is Laiduni. So he will be continuing on in this tournament in my opinion. Next fight. Fan favorite Nabil Khbabez is taking on Milos Svetikanin. This is a very interesting fight because of course Nabil Khbabez is a very heavy fighter. I think he's about 140 kilograms, which is quite heavy, even for heavyweight. And Milos Svetikanin, of course, comes originally from light heavyweight. While he has fought in light heavyweight, he has fought in heavyweight as well. If we look at Milos Svetikanin, he fought in the K1 World Grand Prix in Sarajevo last year, where he qualified for the K1 World Grand Prix tournament, but he eventually chose to fight for Glory instead. And there he made a spectacular debut by knocking out Jimmy Livinus. But let's talk about the heavyweight tournament. He won that tournament by coming in as a reserve fighter, knocking out all 3 fights, which is pretty awesome. So this guy has got some knockout power in his hands, and he's taking on a fighter who, you know, has a fighting style that consists of a lot of pressure. Khbabez comes forward. That's the thing he does. He gives you no room to breathe. He gives you no room to, you know, use your actions. But at the same time, Svetikanin has very strong short hooks. He can knock you out from a distance. He can knock you out from close by. So in that sense, this is going to be a very interesting fight since Khbabez wants to come close. And, you know, if you come close and you get hit by a punch by Svetikanin, it won't end up well. So as mentioned, Khbabez uses a lot of pressure. What he does as well is, you know, smother you. He is not necessarily he is not a knockout fighter, but he does know how to, you know, overwhelm his opponents. But I think, you know, whatever the case may be, I feel like the power of Svetikanin is so... He's got some power, and, you know, he is so explosive, especially as a light heavyweight coming in heavyweight. You know, if you're a little bit more light, you can use all that speed, you know, to be faster than your heavyweight opponent, especially if your opponent is 140 kilograms, which is a lot. You know, you should be the first one to be able to hit. So this is going to be a very interesting matchup. I think Svetikanin is going to win this fight. A lot of people will probably not agree with me, but I think Svetikanin has just too much power. On to the next fight. In the next fight, we have a fight with the highly anticipated Rade Opacic and, of course, one of the more well-known fighters in Glory, Nico Big Sexy Horta. Of course, Opacic coming from Serbia, he is, you know, one of the biggest talents walking around the earth right now in heavyweight. He has fought in one championship before. At the moment, he actually has a 5-fight winning streak, and he defeated Iraj Azizpour, who is also participating in this tournament. He has defeated Stofaridis. He defeated Glory veteran Guto Innocent. So, you know, he is a guy, you know, we should really look out for, because from his 21 wins, he got 16 by knockout. So he is a real knockout fighter. And he is fighting against one of the most durable fighters in Glory as of yet. And that's, of course, Nico Horta Big Sexy. You know, he can take a punch. When he fought Levi Rigters, you know, Levi Richter is known for his, you know, relentless low kicks, his relentless punches, his pressure, but he never backed down. He never went down. So if Opacic would pull it off, you know, to knock out Big Sexy, that would be a huge accomplishment. At the same time, the talent that Opacic is, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. Mark my words, Opacic, he is a fighter to look out for, a real talent. At the same time, Nico Horta, always fun, loves to fight, comes to fight, never backs down. He is one of the most, you know, fun guys to talk with, because I actually met him when I was at a Glory event interviewing fighters. And, you know, he's one of the most down-to-earth people you will ever meet. And his style is very frustrating, because his thing is pressure, coming forward and fighting against Opacic, giving Opacic no space is probably the key for him to win this fight. But I think the talent that Opacic has will be enough to win from Big Sexy. I do not like to see Big Sexy lose, but there's always another chance in phase 2. Next fight. In the next fight, we have Kuki Osaro from Nigeria taking on one of Glory's veterans, one of these fighters who has been with Glory for such a long time, in Benjamin Adegbui from Romania. Of course, very interesting fight because this is like the young guard versus the old guard. I am looking forward to this fight because I always like Adegbui fight, but at the same time, he is already past 40, has lost a few fights in a row. He has been, wobbled, knocked down, knocked out in his last couple of fights, and it's a shame to see him go out, like this because, again, he has done so much for the sport. He has won multiple Glory tournaments already. In my opinion, he doesn't need anything to prove to us kickboxing fans, but of course I always enjoy watching him fight. But at the same time, he's fighting a young guy who has knockout power, so this is going to be a very dangerous fight for him. But if he managed to pull the upset, that would be insane. So if we look at Adegbui's style, he knows how to throw bombs. He's very technical, trains for Rico Verhoeven, knows how to play the kicking game, has very strong body kick, especially front kick body kicks. That's one of his staple kicks. But he's taking on Kuki Osaro, who is, not necessarily the most technical fighter, but he is a powerhouse. He knows how to knock people out. Of course, in his last couple of fights, he hasn't performed as we know and love him. But at the same time, I think he's still young, he has still room to grow. And this is a fight where he can show that he is still one of the best fighters out there. So I'm really looking forward to this fight. If I have to do a prediction, I will go with Osaro. The next fight. This is a fight that I'm like, this is a real mismatch. This is a fight between Brian Douwes from the Netherlands and Bahram Rajabzadeh, the Golden Wolf from Azerbaijan. Of course, we all know and love Bahram Rajabzadeh. He is so entertaining, has a great personality, but he is a wild man. He is a Tasmanian devil. He likes to, come up close and keep hitting you until you go down. And that's what he does. He knocks people out. He even comes close and uses his jumping knees to hit you on the chin. Man, he's a savage. He's taking on Brian Douwes. He is a veteran of the sport. But to be honest, he's quite inconsistent. I mean, he's got a couple of losses, a few wins, but, to be honest, since 2015, he hasn't, defeated a top 10 name. So it feels a little bit like he's being brought in as cannon fodder, which is obviously not the case because this is a random draw. But he really pulled the shortest straw in this fight because, Bahram Rajabzadeh is going for the knockout, and Brian Douwes, in his last fight, he lost by knockout against Krnjić. Man, it's going to be a very difficult fight for Brian. Of course, if we look at his fights, he's got heart, he's got grit, he never backs down. But I feel like the talent that Bahram Rajabzadeh is just from another level compared to Brian Douwes. I think this is going to be a very one-sided fight. I think Bahram Rajabzadeh will win this fight by knockout. We go to the last and final fight of the evening. Of course, we're talking about Jamal Ben Saddik taking on Romania's Cristian Ristea. This is again a mismatch, but again, this is a draw, this is random, this is what happened, and what will happen again is a knockout victory for Ben Saddik because, Ristea is quite light and quite small for a heavyweight, while Ben Saddik is like immensely huge for a heavyweight. I think he's like 2 meters 12 or something like that. He's a big guy, knows how to knock people out. One punch, one kick is enough for him to knock people out. And, Ristea, he has fought in Glory before with no real results, lost all fights. If we look at his record, outside of Glory, still, very inconsistent, not winning all fights. And, Ben Saddik is probably going to be the biggest fight of his career until now. And honestly, I don't think he'll be winning this fight. I think Ristea has some talent, but it won't be enough against Jamal Ben Saddik. Jamal Ben Saddik will win this fight by knockout. There you have it. This was my analysis and these were my predictions for the Glory 99 last heavyweight standing tournament. And, as mentioned, I'm looking forward to this. I really hope that Glory is going to build a new heavyweight division because, it's in dire need of one. And as mentioned, there are a lot of, prospects in this tournament that could eventually, be worthy challengers for maybe a title. And, Rico Verhoeven is on the tail end of his career. So it's necessary for Glory to have a new, fresh division. They need new challengers. They need new fighters, to build this division again. because kickboxing became big because of heavyweight kickboxing. It's been a little bit on the downside, for the last couple of years, but it's slowly coming back, I feel, with this tournament. Still, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of people think that this tournament is like, who are these guys? But there are some talented fighters in this tournament. And, this is only phase 1. Phase 2, we expect Levi Rigters to be there. We expect Plazibat to be there as well. This tournament is going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I still hope Rico Verhoeven will be entering this tournament after he has fought with Artem Vakhitov. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But for now, this was my prediction for the GLORY last heavyweight tournament. As mentioned, GLORY is coming back to the US, and that's a huge surprise because, GLORY tried to conquer the, the US market a few years ago, and that was met with mixed results. So a lot of people were like, why are you going back to the US? Well, I get that argument, like, you tried before, you failed, so why would you go back? At the same time, I get it because although kickboxing is huge in Europe, it is huge in Asia. If you can, get your entertainment product off the ground in the US, it will immediately become something huge. So I get it from, a marketing, from a business point of view, but because they hadn't had that big success in the past, I'm very curious about how they will, try to conquer the American market again in 2025. The first event is announced. It is called GLORY Underground, which is a new label for GLORYs. It's the first time they are doing this. And it's different from other events because they're hosting this in a studio setting. It's an event powered by Petr. I think it's a company owned by one of the Paul brothers. I'm not 100% sure, but the thing is, this is an invite-only event, which means you can buy tickets to go to this event. But what they've done is something new. They will be broadcasting this event for free on YouTube, which is awesome. So a lot of people can watch this fight. A lot of people can watch this event. And if we look at the fight card, it's pretty good right now. It's a fight card that I'm like, this should have taken place in the Netherlands, but it is what it is. It's going to be awesome. This event will be taking place in Miami on the 2nd of May, and it's headlined by none other than welterweight champion Chico Kwasi taking on the challenger Tyjani Beztati. Of course, the rematch. The first one was an awesome fight, ended up in a draw, and now they're gonna do it again. So that's going to be very awesome. That's not the only banger on this card because Michael Boapea will be flying to the US to face off against Stefan Letescu. Both are brawlers. Well, maybe not necessarily brawlers, but these guys know how to throw bombs. And if we look at Michael Boapea, he's rising at the top for such a long time, growing, getting better, getting more technical, using his calf kicks, combination up top. And he is coming from middleweight to light heavyweight. This will be the second fight in light heavyweight. Last fight was, of course, against El Bouni, knocked him out. Man, this is going to be awesome. Letescu, on the other hand, is one of the biggest talents, but at the same time, he has a couple losses in a row. So to be honest, I felt like he could have given a little bit of an easier fight than this, but it's still going to be a banger, a fight that I'm looking forward so much. Another banger is announced. Don Snow taking on Yunus Smiley. Two welterweights. Both are, the new generation of the division, and I can't wait for them to, enter the stage. The last fight at the time of recording that has been announced is the fight between Gary Mack, the first US fighter since Troy Jones, taking on Stankovic, who is a fighter coming off from Killcliff FC, of course, trained by Henry Hoof. This is also an interesting fight. Both are, based in the US, which is, of course, necessary if you want to build an audience. You gotta have some fighters from the country you're hosting the event from. So I'm very, I'm looking forward to this. I know a lot of people do not like the fact that they are going back to the US, but, I have some great memories from when GLORY was, for example, in New York, GLORY 9, or when they went to Chicago, when Rico Verhoeven won his first title. I remember that I set my alarm clock in the middle of the night just to, watch the event. Of course, same goes for the fights when Nicky Holtzken had to fight in the US. It was, when I was laid up at night, when you were, talking on the internet with other people who were watching the fight too, that, you knew that you were part of this community of people who really were, waking up in the middle of the night to watch some sweet, good old kickboxing. And so my association with going to the US isn't as negative as a lot of people, feel like that. So I can't wait. I'm looking forward to this. And I do feel like this card isn't, completed yet. So I can't wait for what's happening next. As mentioned in my previous video, I'll be taking a little bit of a break because I'm becoming a father of twins, which means that's going to take up a lot of my time and priorities changes, you know. And as mentioned, of course, I love kickboxing so much, so eventually I will be making videos again, but for now I'll be taking a little bit of a break. Please, again, do not unsubscribe because I will be back. And if you want to see more stuff from me, please go watch my video where I talk about the future of kickboxing when Rico Verhoeven and Badr retire. I also made a video about the legacy of Buakaw, of course, one of the most legendary 70 kg fighters from K1, of course. So I do have some content for you guys to watch, and I will still be active on social media and of course the Beyond Kickboxing Discord, a little bit on Reddit as well. So if you're interested in my opinions, just follow the Kickboxing Nerd on social media and you'll see my opinions on kickboxing. Also, please like this video and subscribe to the channel because in the future there will be new videos coming. Thanks.